Simple OCDS data, which doesn't contain one-to-many relationships, can be represented in a single table or sheet. This file contains a tabular version of Paraguay's OCDS data, showing tenders issued in August 2020. This is a compiled release dataset, which means each contracting process is represented by a single row. The OCID column contains the identifier for the contracting process. Each column represents a field in OCDS. For example, the tender period is represented using two columns, one for the start date and one for the end date. The column header contains either the JSON path for the field or the title of the field and its parent objects. You can use this to look up the meaning of a field using the OCDS documentation. Let's look up the meaning of the tender period start date field. First, we look up the tender object, then the tender period object, and finally the start date field. In order to represent data that includes one-to-many relationships, OCDS uses multiple tables. Let's look at another compiled release dataset from Paraguay. This time the data also includes a list of the tenderers for each tender. Because each tender can have many tenderers, the list of tenderers is stored in a separate sheet where each row represents one tenderer. You can use the OCID column to identify which contracting process each tenderer relates to. This example also includes separate sheets for awards and suppliers, since a contracting process can have multiple awards and suppliers. Note that in addition to the OCID column, the awards and suppliers sheet also includes an award ID column, which we can combine with the OCID to identify which contracting process and award each supplier relates to. This approach of relating data in one sheet to another by using the identifiers of the parent objects applies to all the one-to-many relationships in OCDS. If you're working with releases rather than compiled releases, then each contracting process can be represented by multiple rows. You can use the release ID column to identify which release each row relates to. Visit the standard documentation for more information or watch our Analyzing OCDS Data in a Spreadsheet video.